Fairley's got 5 race wins this season. He's made it 6 poles this evening so far. Is it going to be 6 wins to accompany those 6 pole positions? Clements now coming up to come alongside the Mercedes on the front row of the grid. Some may say a bit of a shock that Clements jumped up there at the last second. I don't think so. I think from what he's shown in the few races he's been in IRL, he's definitely got the pace to be up there. But now we'll have to wait and see if he can challenge for the top step. So everyone is connecting, the 5 lights are going on, and the wet Japanese Grand Prix is underway, and the hat and the Alpine of, it looks like Dr. Edward has had a really good start. Fairly leads into turn 1. There's lots of shifting going around in the mid-pack. Pete is up into P5, and it looks like Ross is already up into 11th place. Dayman has gone slightly backwards, however, he will need to take control of his car. And Flew has also gone for a bit of a ride at the back of the field. He is spun and round. Ross was in 11th and now is down to 14th and now back up to 12th. So he's had a bit of a roller coaster in the first sector. Padge is also following him up the field. Good starts for Ross and Padge at the back of the field. See there a bit of a train. SL O'Connor in 4th, and down the inside goes that guy on Allgrider. I have to say that was a very, very good move there. Didn't cause contact. Allgrider gave him space. Very sporting of him. Cool Assassin now side by side, staying ahead though of his teammate Dr. Edward. Top 4 are as they were. Clements is not being dropped by Fairley here, however Wiggles is on the back of Clements for 2nd place. There you see the little lift through 130R. We did mention in the track touring qualifying. Oh, Clements has gone wide at the chicane. He's cut across the chicane. He hasn't got the penalty for it, which is good news for him, but he has lost 2nd place. And I have to say, if Clements came back onto the track there dangerously, that would have caused Wiggles a massive problem. And Dr. Edward, what's happened to him? He's dropped, as has his teammate Cool Assassin. The Alpines running up in 6th and 7th a minute ago. Now they're running 14th and 15th. So what's happened to the 2 Alpines? Has damage because he's catching the back of Dayman. So I think maybe just a bit of a spin. Maybe they had to avoid some incidents. And there is Appy out of the Grand Prix. Debris on the track. Oh, and Padge has lost it now. Padge spinning off the track. Yellow flags in sector 1 and 2. Appy is out of this race. Padge has spun. And maybe just a little bit too throttle there on the wet conditions. And, oh, in fact, he's missing the tyre off of his left wheel. His rear left. I've not seen that before, I have to admit. Oh no, if he's got a puncture, he must have run over the debris from Appy's car. So Appy has crashed, and Padge has got a puncture here. That is desperately unlucky for Padge, who will have to pit. AMS Fairley now running out a gap. 1.8 seconds out in front. Allgrider with a penalty. We missed that on screen, but Ross is up into 7th place. And SL O'Connor has lost out to Pete, and he's had an issue at turn 1 and turn 2. And that is why Pete has got past. That guy is now has now overtaken Connor up into 5th place. Connor struggling perhaps in these wet conditions. Now he has an Aston Martin right in front of him that he has to try to avoid. also looks like. Called Assassin dropping places. Or not managing to get round to pit. This is desperately unlucky for him. He'll probably come out of the pits. A lap down will be Padge, so he'll be hoping and praying for a safety car. Maverick losing places now to Edward and Flew. And now Cool Assassin on the back of the Mexican. Maverick goes wide. Padge cutting the final chicane, it would seem. Getting a 10-second penalty, however, might just be avoiding the cars in terms of safety. And there he is round at the final corner. Thankfully he is ghosted as Fairley sets another purple lap of the race. Padge needs to be careful he doesn't get disqualified here. But he is a lap down now and will have to pit. This is very, very unlucky for Padge. Maverick also into the pits. Padge also has no front wing as well, so he's lost that in this last lap. Fairley leads the pack by 2.5 seconds. Mr. Wiggles is in second. Let's not forget, in wet conditions there is no DRS, so it doesn't matter if they're within a second of the car in front. They won't be able to open their rear wing. But that's the way we like it. We love a good race that keeps you on the edge of your seat. I'm sure there's plenty more where that came from. Wiggles maintaining that gap to Kemments now. Ross, meanwhile, is flying. He was 5 seconds behind that guy in P6. But since SL O'Connor has dropped a little bit away from the Aston Martin, Ross has now gained that time on the Mercedes driver. And Ross is now looking to get past Connor up into 6th place. Ross has had a great start to this race. Can he keep it going? Or bridle with another time penalty? Ross gaining a lot of time on Connor on the straight there, so I wonder if Ross is going for a low downforce setup in the wet, or maybe he just got a better exit off the final chicane. Mr. Wiggles now with a 3-second time penalty, lap 5 of 27. I'm sure the rest of his 22 or 23 laps are going to be trying to get a 3-second gap to Kemments. It's currently stabilised at around 1 second, although Kemments is flirting with the idea of being within a second of Mr. Wiggles. That guy is also getting to the back of Pete in 4th place, so that guy didn't show up for the original lobby, took part in the restarted lobby, and loving it at the moment. Allrider already with multiple penalties, so you can see 8 seconds for Allrider. Which means Prev is going to get past him as it stands. Ross can't get close enough into turn 1. 1010 says Connor may have damage. I think might be right, although he's driving the absolute gearbox off that car if he does have damage. Pace is very good. He's actually closing a little bit to that guy in P5, so Connor may have a slight bit of damage, but that we don't know about, but it might not affect him too much. Ross taking a tight line through the hairpin, trying to get a good exit. Bit of a slide. That would have cost him maybe a tenth. Now Clements right on the rear wing of the Haas car, and we'll see if Clements can make a move here into turn 1. Seems like they're at the same speeds. Clements pulls out of the slipstream. He's not close enough. But Wiggles runs wide at turn 1. Comes back onto the track to see Clements is ahead. We haven't seen a more interesting Haas and Williams battle in real life. So thank goodness for IIRL tonight. This battle between Clements and Wiggles is allowing Fairley to extend his gap at the front. Gap is up to 5.2 seconds. And already Fairley must be thinking, okay, maybe I can take my foot off the throttle a little bit and just avoid getting any penalties. Clements going a bit wide into the hairpin. Wiggles should have a better exit here. That guy's following Pete right on the gearbox. Ross is also still on the gearbox of Connor, and Allgridle is defending P8 from not only Prev but Dr. Edward as well. Dayman is on the back of Cool Assassin. Lots of battles going up and down the fields. Mazepin versus Latifi, love it. I'd love to see those two in an all-out brawl. Dayman and Assassin. One comes out at day, one comes out at night. Who will stay cool in this battle of Haas? Oh, and it looks like Dayman lagging a little bit here. The Alpine staying ahead for now. Yeah, but we will raise now is what is the pit stop strategy going to be like as Mr. Wiggles picks up his second time penalty. That brings him up to a total of 6 seconds right now, which now drops him out of the podium places and all the way down to P7 as Ross sets a very satisfying lap time there at 1:39.999. Cool Assassin running wide at the exit of 130R, and Wiggles is out. Wiggles has crashed at the exit of turn 2, and there's a safety car. This now means that people are going to dive into the pits. And there you see it. Wiggles is out at the exact same place that Ross crashed in Q1. Wiggles had a flying start. Got a couple of time penalties, but that is not his biggest worry. He is out of this race. Perhaps they are very spaced out, so this may take a couple of laps to sort out. I wonder if any of the leaders will pit. Fairley does go into the pits, as does Clements. What about Pete? And maybe a double stack here at Williams. And there is going to be a double stack. That guy into the pit. Also a double stack at Mercedes. Ross now into the pits, into the Red Bull garage. Even though he does drive for Alfa Romeo. But that's fine, we can transfer the points over. So all of the top 6 into the pits. Now Allgridle follows. And Prev also very close to the back of the Alfa Romeo. Dr. Edward also now making contact with Flew, but does well not to. Allgridle in that pit stop has served a 5-second time penalty too, so he's only on 3 seconds now. Patch has a 10 seconds. Oh, and Fairley is into the wall. We'll have to see if Fairley's got any damage here. That looked like a pretty hefty shunt into the barrier. He may have some slight front wing damage here. Go on board and see if there's any understeer. when he turns. Does look like maybe he's suffering with a bit of understeer there. But a bit of an unforced error from Fairley. You don't see that very often here in the no assist tier. Maverick is going up to the spoon corners now. Safety car is in this lap, so Maverick will have a job to do if he wants to catch the back of the field. However, when will Fairley go for it? In fact, Fairley may need to pit here. We'll have to wait and see. It looks like he's gone for it very early. Definitely caught Kement's napping. That is very, very smart play here from Fairley. A great safety car restart. And that guy is maintaining where he left off, a couple of tenths behind the gearbox of Pete. Pete a little bit wide into turn 1. It's turn 2, again a little bit wide, but that guy not enough space and opportunity to go around the inside of turn 2. And there you can see Fairley, his early advantage off the safety car restart has been lost, and I think Fairley is picking up some damage here. You can see all 4 of these cars within just a few tenths. I reckon Fairley has quite a bit of damage here, and the more that Fairley keeps these drivers at bay, the more bunched up they're going to get. As Ross down the inside of Connor, side by side on the exit. Connor stays ahead of Ross, both with a bit of a slide through the hairpin. So Connor running a little bit wide. Ross going down the inside of Spoon. He's fully alongside. Side by side now. That is a very risky move, going side by side through that corner in these conditions on this track. Kement's still trying to get ahead of Fairley for the lead of the race. That guy, will he go for a move? Yes, he will. He's gone a bit too deep. He's touched the Alpine of Kement's. Pete is forced off the track a little bit, perhaps. A bit of a slide there from that guy. Now Ross, who is past SL O'Connor, now has a bit of a run on Pete down into turn 1. It is Red Bull versus Williams. Ross sticking to the inside of the track. Pete, good defence, has to be said. But what about the defence from AMS Fairley? If he indeed is carrying damage, how is he defending from Kement's in the way he is? Time penalty now for Cool Assassin. Up in 11th. Oh, and crashing into the wall. Not out of the race goes Kement's, but he has lost his front wing, and there's a lot of debris on track. That is where Appy crashed. Pete is now lost out in that. Pete had to slam on the brakes. Kement's now a 10-second time penalty, and SL O'Connor shoves it up the inside very aggressively, has to be said, on Pete. Ross managing to stay ahead. Pete here has been very unfortunate to lose a couple of places. So AMS Fairley still leads, but doesn't lead Kement's. Instead, that guy now. Can he make a move for the lead of this race? The man who didn't even show up for the qualifying one. Ross now waiting in the wings. Does he wait for that guy to try and get past Fairley, or does he make a move as Padge has retired in the pit lane? Kement's is now into the pits for a new front wing. Ross looking down the inside of that guy, pulls out of the move, was going to cause a bit of a crash there. SL O'Connor needed to be aware that Ross would have applied a bit more brake there. These top 6 very close to the car in front of them. Dr. Edward is P7 and Flew is P8, Orgrado in P9, and Assassin up into the points. Damon. That guy a little bit wide into the first Degner, leaves a bit of a space for Ross. Again, a little bit wide in the second Egner, and Ross makes his move. SL O'Connor now spotting an opportunity down the inside of that guy. A little bit of a wheel contact. SL O'Connor can't get past the Aston Martin on this occasion. AMS Fairley now leads. Oh, and off the track goes SL O'Connor. What has happened in the background? But we just see him sliding off the track into the barrier. He's still in the race. And it doesn't seem to have affected his car too much. Flew now is on the back of SL O'Connor. SL O'Connor is still in the running here for some good points. He's not too far behind the race leader. Can Ross complete a remarkable comeback? From last to first, round the outside of the Mercedes he goes, side by side, swings it out and pulls off an absolutely fabulous move on Fairley. We do know that Fairley had damage, yes, and that may not have happened if Fairley didn't have damage, but Ross still had to make that move as Fairley gets a little bit of a tap from behind, or maybe that was just a bit of oversteer. But Fairley now losing places. His race has come apart. That safety car was the first warning perhaps, but nothing could have prepared him for this restart. He's still got 11 or 12 laps. If he is going to stick out this race with the damage, he still has Dr. Edward, and it's going to be Alonso versus Schumacher all over again. Thankfully, they're not going side by side because that probably would have ended in tears. Looked like a bit of a corner cut there for Prev. Fairley does come into the pits, and he will be absolutely gutted. If a safety car comes out, he might be thrown a bit of a lifeline, and that might be what he's thinking right now. He's scoring no points. That guy with a time penalty, and that is critical. He's in second. Oh, and off the track goes Flew, and he is out. And that is a big accident coming out of Dunlop Curve, and I tell you what, Fairley's wish has been granted. A safety car has come out exactly after he exits the pits. Fairley is not out of this, and with a fixed front wing, I'm sure in the latter stages of this race he will be licking his lips. But Flew is out. Very tricky conditions. Did not want that to happen at any cost. Now the bunch, the group of drivers will be bunched up. Ross pits, as does that guy. In comes Pete. Prev staying out to take the lead of the race. SL O'Connor will be in second. Dr. Edward now into the pits. What about Allgridle? He stays out. Cool Assassin in to make it a double stack here for Alpine. Maverick stays out, and he will jump a load of places in the process too. But just how many? Here comes our previous race leader Ross, and Maverick gets past him. So Ross has lost 4 places, pitting for new intermediate tyres. Keeping it cool, keeping it clean. He's still within a shout as well. At the moment, it seems like Ross maybe is in the best place with brand new tyres at his disposal and no time penalties next to his name. Will the safety car be coming in? Yes, it will be. Kemments has caught up to the back of the field. Maverick has a 5-second penalty for a touch with Allgridle and the safety car, and SL O'Connor pits. So I wonder if Connor has got some damage. Oh, and Ross and Maverick are out. What has happened there? Oh, and a big crash. Maverick on the pit entry. Ross on the straight, and both of them are gone. AMS Fairley has got a puncture on his front right, and I wonder why he was going so slow. Oh my goodness, that safety car restart was absolutely insane. Essel O'Connor is pitted. He's got some damage under a collision with Prev under safety car. He's now served his 5-second penalty, but now finds himself at the back of the field, a long way behind his teammate, who has to pit for, again, a new set of tyres after getting a puncture. Dayman and Kemmets are behind Cool Assassin. Prev has got side pod damage, according to Appy. Oh, and Dayman's lost it now. They're all flying off the track. They're dropping like flies here in NA. Dayman struggling. AMS Fairley, look at that tyre. It's not even a tyre anymore, it's just a blob of rubber. Out in front, that guy, audacious move there on Orgrider, but makes it stick. What a dive bomb. A lot of people say you can't dive bomb on this game and be clean. That guy has just proved them wrong. As it looks like Orgrider went a little bit wide at turn 2. Pete is now on the cusp of a possible podium. Oh, and Orgrider touching the curb. Oh, and it looks like Pete may have swiped him slightly. I don't think that was Pete's intention. I think that was probably a racing incident, if that was me calling it. But Orgrider getting on the inside curb, getting sideways, losing a couple of places. He's down to 5th now. Battle, some good defensive work. Someone getting damaged, someone spinning, someone crashing. It looks like Prev really does struggle out of Spoon. That guy gets a much better exit through 130R. Oh, and that guy, good on the brakes again, doesn't run into the back of the Ferrari. That's the last thing you want to do here, is give yourself damage when you know, or maybe he doesn't know perhaps, that the car in front has damage, but Pete is now just dropping into that 3-second window. That guy needs to clear Prev and clear him quickly before Pete starts gaining. New fastest lap of the race for Kemmets, as he is on the back of Dr. Edward now for 4th place. Cool Assassin is on the back of Orgrider now for 6th place. That guy is as close to the back of Prev as he has been since this restart. Will he go for it? He goes down the inside. He makes the apex beautifully. Prev is still there on the outside. Good wheel-to-wheel racing from these two. Dayman gets a time penalty, and that guy takes the lead of this race. The problem is for him, Pete is only 1.6 seconds behind Prev now, which means that guy needs to build a gap on Prev, and he needs to do it quickly. Pete's job is to try and get past Prev as quickly as he can and charge down on the Aston Martin, and there's only 3 and a bit laps of this race left. And I have to say, we know that wet weather can change a race from a predictable scenario. Chives says, sorry, too busy at the pub. You've missed out on an absolutely brilliant race, as you see that guy going wide at Spoon and a couple of time penalties being dished out. Essel O'Connor getting one. To the last lap, I reckon. The gap is 2.7 between Pete and the race win. Pete. Raced in one race this season so far. It wasn't a race win. No on the podium. He did finish in the points. This would probably be out of his wildest imagination if he can pull this off. The gap is still around 3 seconds. There's only 2 laps left of this race. We don't know where they're going to finish. We know that Prev is going to drop behind Pete and Dr. Edward. He'll stay ahead of Cool Assassin. Oh, as Prev has lost it at the end of turn 2. And Prev was doing so well to defend P2 there. But as we say, in wet weather conditions, it is just so tricky. You could lose it at any moment, at any corner, you can drop it. We've seen it happen in this race, in quali. And now it's 2 Williams on the podium. Clements will fork over his spot on the podium to Dr. Edward, who at the moment is racing superbly. Has 2 podiums out of the last 3 races and a 4th place finish. Dr. Edward is on fire this season. Clements is closing on the back of Pete. Clements is the fastest driver out on track right now. Fairley's got past Dayman, he's up into P9, hoping just for another point. Fairley may go for a fastest lap attempt here, try and get another point. It's the last lap of the race, and Pete is starting to drop back a little bit. Gap is now 3.6 seconds. That guy has a nice advantage here, coming into the final lap of the race. And the more that Clements closes to the back of Pete, the more that Pete is going to look in his mirrors, and the more that he's going to lose time on the race leader. But what Pete needs to do is just keep his head down. Don't worry about the car behind, because the car behind has crashed. Clements is out of the race on the final lap. And how many times have we seen that here this evening? A car in the barrier, out of the race, right when you least expect it. And Pete, I was about to say, has lost more ground. He's now 4.2 seconds behind, but it's okay because that guy now has 6 seconds of time penalties. This race just will not quit. In fact, I'm glad that this is the end of the race because my voice wouldn't be able to take any more of this. And now the question is, can Dr. Edward get within 6 seconds of our race leader? Cool Assassin has now crashed as well, and he's crashed at the first Degner. So Fairley and Dayman are going to jump up now to 7th and 8th respectively. That guy comes around to take the checkered flag, but Pete will win his first race in IIRL with a fantastic performance. Dr. Edward comes round to finish on the podium, but cannot beat that guy to P2, but a fabulous drive there from Edward. Prev, what could have been maybe a podium, but that time penalty just, and that spin on the last few laps really hurting him, but he still finishes in 4th. Allgreidel, great strong result from him. He finishes in 5th. SL O'Connor definitely looking strong here this evening, finishing P. First safety car ruined his good progress in the first few laps, and he stops and does some donuts for us. That's very nice of him. He may lose a place to Dayman here. He has to be careful he doesn't get disqualified as well. But it's nice to see some donuts here. Our featured driver treating us. You have to say Fairley has got a little bit unlucky here this evening. And some more donuts. Dayman will definitely get P8, but whether he'll get P7 is another question. It looks like Fairley doesn't want to lose out to the Haas. Fairley built up a big lead at the start of this race. 5 seconds, safety car came out, ruined his good work. He then got some damage under safety car, which caused him to go into ultra defensive mode. and then a cruel puncture caused him to drop to the back of the fields. Driver of the day in-game is that guy. However, driver of the day is going to be decided by our no assist tier drivers this evening. For the next 24 hours, you can vote on driver of the day between Pete, that guy, and Dr. Edward.